Namaste and welcome to episode 7 of Volume 1 of the Paramacharya's Deivathin Kural. In this episode, we discuss and reflect on Ananda and Paramananda. The English equivalents for these two words would be bliss and eternal bliss, but they're limited in scope and do not really capture the depth and width of what Ananda and Paramananda mean in the Gargic sense. However, we'll have to make do with the words that we have because this podcast is happening in English. In this chapter, and in trying to explain the concept of enduring bliss, that is Paramananda, often termed Satchidananda or Satchit Ananda, and famously translated as existence, knowledge, and absolute bliss by Swami Vivekananda. The Paramacharya narrates a story from the Krita Yuga. Brighu, himself a sage, approaches his father Varuna and asks him, how do I get to know that which is the fullest and is one without a second? Varuna says, son, why don't you go and do tapas on this? You will understand it yourself. Here is an excellent illustration of how learning happened so organically in ancient India, Bharat. Varuna is demonstrating the leadership principle of handing over the problem back to the person with the problem. This is because solutions have to come from those who are faced with the issue. Furthermore, the present practice of hand-holding show and tell methodologies that mollycoddle youngsters and make them into insecure adults is a very limited and inferior approach to teaching, mentoring, or coaching, for example. Coming back to the story, Brighu follows his father's advice and goes into the forest and performs rigorous tapas. After several weeks of such intense effort, he comes to the conclusion that the human body and the food that fuels it is the fullest and the highest. He comes back to Varuna and shares this insight. Varuna once again makes no judgment or comment, but gently nudges his son to do more tapas, indicating subtly that he had not yet reached the right conclusion. Brighu once again retires to the seclusion of the forest and meditates on the question. This back and forth is repeated 5 times before he finally arrives at the answer. When he realizes that the body rots and dies and therefore cannot be eternal, he first rejects the body. After a few years, he progresses to prana, the vital force within all beings, but then realizes under Varuna's gentle prodding that prana too is subject to change and cessation. Then, as he delves deeper and deeper into the layers of his own being, he rejects the mind, then the intellect, and so on before he finally arrives at some semblance of a response. He sees that all this constant practice and intense effort has changed him as an individual. He has become calmer, mellower, patient, and kind. He also notices that an unexplainable and unfathomable peace and serenity has entered into him. Not yet a permanent state, but enough to tell him that this is beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the intellect, and outside the grasp of the senses, and in a sense, indescribable. For him, this was a transcendental experience and an immersive experience. Brighu walks up to his father for the 6th time and tells him that there are moments when he experiences a strange and unexplainable ananda, a happiness that is beyond the ordinary, a bliss that cannot be put into words. He then asks his father Varuna, what is this feeling of ananda, father? Why does it come and go? Why is it not permanent? Varuna then finally explains to his son that the small doses of ananda that he's experiencing is the fleeting expression of the fullness that pervades and permeates all things in the universe. He tells his son, when this Ananda fills your entire being and settles down there, then it transforms into Paramananda. He then adds, this Paramananda is the only thing that is always full, pristine, blemishless, and faultless, independent of place and time. Beyond the body, mind, and intellect, there is the divine spark within all beings, the Atman. As long as the Atman identifies itself with the body, so long does it live under the delusion the body is real. The moment it realizes that the eternal Paramatman, soaked in Paramananda, is no different from the Jivatman, then the Jivatman becomes one with the Paramatman. And Paramananda becomes a natural state and a natural steady state of existence. Knowledge, absolute bliss, Sachidananda, becomes a living reality. We too experience a drop of this ocean of immense joy sometimes. A fleeting moment when the eyes well up, the throat chokes up, or the hairs on the body stand on end. However fleeting, it gives us a glimpse of what is possible and the state one seeks to attain. This is the quest. This is the goal. Now imagine sitting beneath a tree with such thick foliage that not even a ray of sunlight can get through. Now again, imagine a strong gust of wind blowing through the branches and creating an opening just enough for a drop of golden sun to pass through and form a glow at our feet. This is how we sometimes experience the glow of the divine. Again, when the breeze stops blowing and the gap closes, darkness descends. Once again, in this way, we sometimes experience, but it's not a permanent experience. The goal, of course, is permanent Paramananda, which is all pervading and ever present. However, a combination of a karmapala and the disturbances in the mind and intellect keep this Ananda hidden from us. When the leaves of bad karma move away as a result of some good karma, then a little bit of the divine sunlight penetrates our inner being and then goes away. If this limited Ananda expands and becomes the Paramananda, then we have arrived at the goal. Through constant tapas and inquiry into the nature of reality, we can become one with the ocean of Paramananda and become Paramananda ourselves. Well, this closes the chapter. There are four important takeaways from the story of Brighu and Varuna in this chapter. One, the path of self-discovery lies within us and is reached through inward exploration, contemplation, inquiry, and meditation. The nature of reality is multi-layered and deep. What we think is illusion could well be reality, and reality, illusion. The life we lead is a play of shadows on the surface of Brahman. Brahman is the source of all. Everything we experience, from the physical world to the deepest emotions, arises from and ultimately merges back into Brahman. This ends episode 7 of this podcast. Thank you.